5 o'clock on Wednesday, the 23rd of April, 2025. And we have a quorum here for the Smart Growth Steering Committee in Hadley with Andrew Gannett, Ronnie Williams, Mark Dunn. And then joining us online, we have Kyle Finnell. Do we have Aiden? Yes, we have Aiden, and we have Kayla. So with that, I will turn it over to you, Kyle, or Aiden, or whomever.
Okay. I think on our agenda today, there were some minutes circulated.
Yes.
So I will invite Kayla to offer any context there and just clarify for the record which minutes were shared, and then let you all take your vote on that if need be.
I'm forgetting the dates.
9:30, 10:21, 11:04, and 11:18.
So that's before Ronnie joined us, right? So you will not want to vote on these. Okay. How did they look to you, Andrew?
It looked fine to me.
Okay, good.
Two of them said there wasn't a quorum, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah, that's quick and easy, so. Okay, I printed them out yesterday. I haven't seen problems, so I would entertain a motion to adopt them as written.
Second.
All right. Well, actually, if you would make the motion, then I will second.
I'll make a motion
Yeah.
to adopt them as they
All
are.
right, and then I will second that. And we'll do a roll call vote. Andrew?
Andrew, aye.
Mark Dunn, aye. And Ronnie, you're gonna abstain?
Yep.
Okay, so it's 2-0-1. Okay.
Great. All right. So after the minutes, we have on our agenda to finalize the draft agenda for the May public events. First, I'd like to apologize because we have not been able to get that agenda to a state where I think it's ready to finalize. I'll take responsibility for that as I'm trying to wrap up a lot of tasks and hand them off. I've just dropped the ball. And unfortunately, Patriots Day did not help me get things accomplished. So what I would ask during this time, if we could, with the quorum that's present, if we could consider adding a check-in, a meeting next Wednesday, so that we could accomplish the finalization of these materials before I depart.
That would be April 30th?
Yes.
April 30th, yes. The only potential conflict on the town calendar is a 5:30 Parks and Rec remote meeting. In terms of needing the town Zoom account, that's all that I can see on the record or publicly.
So I also think that Parks and Rec might be trying out using a Teams meeting.
Oh, okay.
So hopefully the Zoom will be available or potentially we will be using Teams at that point. I'm not sure yet, but I will check in.
Is that a soon to be like town-wide shift, or is that just the Parks and Rec?
I think Parks and Rec is the guinea pig and they're gonna see how it works.
Okay. I will say, as someone who's more familiar and fluent in Zoom, it takes a little while just to figure out like where things are, but generally speaking, it's the same functionality. It's just they put buttons in weird places.
What's it called?
It's called Teams. It's a
Microsoft.
We have it at my other paying job, and our IT there wanted us all to shift over, but us COVID era Zoomers have been slow and reluctant.
Yeah. So could 5 o'clock work next Wednesday?
Works for me.
Sure.
Okay. So we would circle back to the finalizing the draft agenda and finalizing the outreach materials, which we're also still drafting.
Okay.
The one question I would pose that's still kind of on this topic, not necessarily to designate facilitators, but just to confirm of the three steering committee members present. I know that Ronnie will not be attending both events, so I would exclude her from this question, but just want to confirm, Mark and Andrew, if you are comfortable kind of facilitating one of the station conversations.
I'm planning on what is this? Is it the 17th? Is that the,
Yeah.
Is
and
that the
20
Saturday?
Yes, and the 22nd, Thursday.
Those are the dates, yeah.
yeah, I definitely am counting on the 17th, and I will ink in Thursday as well.
I'm definitely available on Thursday, 17th. I'm most likely available. I need to see. That should be fine.
Okay.
And remind me what the time is on Thursday? Is that?
Thursday, we're looking at 6 to 8. 6 to 8.
Okay,
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I've got 6:30. 6:30 to 8:30.
6:30 to 8:30, okay.
But that is helpful just because I will not be able to attend. And at this point we're trying to just clarify if and how much additional support we'll need to provide. Aiden is very capable, but he is not superhuman. He can't be doing 2, 3, 4 things at the same time. So we will get supporting staff to attend those events.
Yeah, and I'll be there on the 17th. I should be there.
Okay, wonderful. Okay,
Okay, I've got it in, so I'm on both.
Okay.
So 10 to 12 on the 17th. So I'll plan to be here by 9:30.
Mhm.
And 6:30 to 8:30 on the 22nd, I'll plan to be here by 6.
Fantastic. Oh, yeah, so that's helpful for us. So we know that we plan to have at least 2 of you at both and 3 at the first one. Hopefully Randy and or Kishore can be at both. The good news that I do have to report, Mark, we finally received word yesterday at 3 in the afternoon that the planning assistance grant was awarded in full. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is some questions about contracting because I guess because I submitted the application on the town's behalf, the award letter came to me and all the contracts came to me, and I was put on the contract as the signatory,
Okay.
but that's not accurate. So there's just some confusion to clean up. I've already brought Bill Dwyer.
Yeah, I was gonna say, ask Bill, yeah.
Yeah, I've already brought Bill and Mike and Jim into the conversation. They've seen it, and I just need to clarify with Mike who needs to sign what.
You referring to Mike Mason,
Yes, Mike Mason,
acting town
acting
administrator
town administrator. Yes,
in the afternoon and police chief extraordinaire in the morning.
right. Yeah, pulling double duty. Yeah, so we should be able to get that contract executed really by week's end, and then we'll get into we'll have that funding available, so we won't be necessarily worried about our funding. I think that also means that we'll have some funds to use to get a small selection of refreshments for those events.
Oh, good. And remind me what that grant was. Was it something in the 23,000 range?
22,500.
22,000.
And that's for what, not just our committee.
Yes, it's
It's
for their services to support our committee.
yeah.
Our subcommittee or.
Yes, our subcommittee
Not the
on,
planning board.
that was
okay.
a smart growth.
Okay,
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah, so that was through the executive office on Energy and Environmental Affairs, they have an annual funding cycle for planning assistance grants, and smart growth zoning is an eligible category of work. So it was never really a question of if we would get it. It was just a very confusing situation where they didn't announce award winners for going on 7 months. So we were expecting word back in early October, and here it is nearly May. So,
I'm gonna blame that on Elon, but whatever, yeah.
uh, it's a huge inconvenience, but we may do. Thank you to the planning board and the Affordable Housing Trust for setting money aside to keep the work going, but it sounds like we'll be able to fund the work and get to a final bylaw product. So if we are going to schedule a meeting next week to finalize those draft agenda items for the May events, we've identified that 2 of you are intending to be at both events. I would just start thinking about, what topics are you more interested in talking about or facilitating a conversation on. You can think back to some of the survey questions if there's any particular topics that you're more inclined to discuss. We're going to be building out kind of guiding questions for those stations. Again, we've identified we're going to create 4 stations to go over. And we'll also, for next meeting, have a final outreach material, the flyer especially, that will be ready for May 1 town meeting on May 1st. If there's no other topics, that really kind of meets all of our listed agenda points. I welcome any conversation on that next meeting if we need to talk it out, but essentially it'll be a continuation of kind of the agenda items that we weren't fully prepared for today.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you could refresh my memory. I'm envisioning these well, I think you said I'm gonna give like an opening talk for 5 minutes to, if this is not what you came for, please be plain at this time. This is what we're here to talk about, and we're looking for your input. That's the kind of thing that I'm gonna be giving at each of those, and then we'll have different stations. And I was envisioning that at each of those stations, there might be another little 5-minute intro to hear the issues that we're looking for your input on. And then I was kind of envisioning having a big a pad.
Yeah.
That you say, yes, you with your hand up, and then they could say a question and we would write it down and we collect the questions and then address them. I like that instead of trying to shoot from the hip on each one, give your brain a little time to digest each question as you write them down. And then, at least for me, that helps me to prepare how I'm going to answer. If I'm writing down question 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, by the time I'm doing 5, 1 is starting to formulate in the back of my brain. So.
And I was listening to something on the radio and thought the kind of questions that would be helpful to ask some of the participants is what kind of housing or what changes would work for you? How many people say I could sell my house if I could find a smaller a senior living arrangement, or or the opposite.
Or my kids that just graduated college could stay in town if they could find this kind of, because there's different,
Or move here.
right,
Somebody,
Yeah.
my son with his family could move here if there were available houses, and
right.
so.
Because there's, let's say, our generation downsizing, there's starter homes, there's young families, there's all kinds of different potential housing need demographics.
Mhm.
And my,
Right.
you
Absolutely.
I
No,
have
yes, Andrew.
I
Yeah,
have
Andrew.
one quick question. Did we ever finalize the FAQs?
No, I think I had to wrap up, I was gonna wrap up the one on the infrastructure.
Cause I did one on emergency services.
Okay,
Um,
you might wanna update that with the new development on I don't think that really changes much. With our, there was a hope that the town was going to be taking over, the ambulance service.
Yeah.
But it's looking like it's gonna be so costly now and require more full-time employee investment
Mhm.
than was originally expected, that may stay as an outsource, but I don't think that will impact. That doesn't impact the services to the taxpayers, it's just how it's funded, is it an in-house expense or is it a farmed out expense? So I digress.
So just to clarify, Andrew, did you say that you had completed some
yeah, I did,
on emergency service?
I did.
Yeah, and Justin did one on, what was his on? Can't remember.
I sent it to Justin, I don't know why it didn't get included, I'm drawing a blank as to why it wasn't included, but.
And I need to take my bullet points from my conversations with the superintendent of schools and the director of the DPW Highway Department, and put those into a wordsmith, something
Okay.
easy to read.
So I just pulled up for quick reference what I believe is the last version of the fact sheets, the FAQs. This was dated the 17th of October last fall. I believe there are 13 pages, but I think there are 10 completed fact sheets, and then there were 2 that were still outstanding. So we had one that answered the question of what does affordable housing really mean? Capital A, affordable. The next was, why is housing access and affordability such a pressing issue? Third was, why does Hadley need more housing? Which was 2 pages. There was accompanying charts and data related to bedrooms and occupied bedrooms, housing values, and then kind of the breakdown of housing types by unit. Vast majority is single family or single dwelling units. The fourth was, what is, quote, smart growth and why is Hadley considering it? So that gets to the question of smart growth kind of broadly, but also introduces the Chapter 40R smart growth. The fifth was related to who would benefit from new housing construction. There was a fact sheet related to new housing construction and homelessness or homeless populations. There's a question regarding new housing construction and migrant populations. There was one fact sheet related to new housing construction and college student populations. There's the question of impacts that new housing construction could have on Hadley's school system.
That's there.
There was the question of impacts new housing construction could have on Hadley's property taxes.
Hmm.
And then there were the two outstanding questions regarding impacts that new housing construction would have on the utility infrastructure
That's mine, yeah.
and the impact new housing construction could have on Hadley's emergency services.
I have that one.
Okay,
Okay, all right.
so I'll make that my homework to have whatever it is, number 9 or whatever mine is, drafted up by next Wednesday.
That would be welcome. Andrew, feel free to send that along to me and I can integrate it. And then, of course, these FAQs can be, we'll make sure to provide that, and print those out and make sure that folks can view them when they attend the events. And I don't believe, Kayla, correct me if I'm mistaken, did we put that online? I don't think we did yet because it wasn't final.
For FAQs, we don't have online yet.
No, okay, yeah, I think we were waiting to try to make sure that they were final. Okay. But yeah, if Mark, if you could get that by
Yeah.
next week, we could get that finalized, that document, and then it would be online and we could promote that also.
I was also thinking if I can get it by this weekend, by like Sunday and get it to you by Monday, if you had to clean it up or anything, possibly we could print them for the May 1st, for like handouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
We could have the FAQs with a front sheet about the dates of the 2 outreach. And that would be a good handout to give people as they come to town meeting.
Okay. So we could even, so we could imagine, a standalone flyer for those that don't want the FAQs, and then we could even package it all up nicely into a little packet if people just want the announcement and some quick fact sheets about the project and kind of the
And yet, could we do it so it's not lots of pages? Just because right now there's the facts have like a little bit of writing and then it's plain. People are gonna want a 6-page thing.
Yeah, we could try to simplify that. I think that's a good point, Ronnie.
Well,
If we can-
or maybe the fact sheet has a cover page that has an index, which lists the questions, 1, 2, 3. So if someone says, I don't care about these, I want to see that one, they can flip to page 7. That's all they care about. Because there are going to be those people that, I don't care about this, I don't care about that, but what about that?
This is also something that you might want to run by the moderator, because I know CPA distributed brochures at last town meeting or last annual town meeting, and they had to run it by the moderator first. So I actually probably have to contact him about that, and I can loop this into that email.
Did Randy ever clarify that?
Yeah, at the last meeting.
Was he going to talk to the moderator?
Yes, he spoke to him and he said that we should be fine if we stood outside. If we weren't, he didn't want us taking table space inside the room, which I assume is the cafetorium there at Hopkins. Yeah. So I think we'd be standing outside the door. We could have maybe one person on either side. If they're coming in 2 lines, we could offer them, do you want the whole packet? It might be easy to just give everyone a packet. I mean, if we have the budget now that we could print, 200 copies. I mean, I don't know. Well, how many do we usually get at town meeting? Yeah, sometimes it's up to 200.
Around there. I mean, it can be, it could also be like 60.
Right.
Yeah, that's why I'd hate to use all that paper.
Well, I was also thinking that if we printed, let's say 150 and we only give out 100, then we'd have them already ready that we could take over to Vesta or leave at the senior center
We
or.
could also link it to a QR code too, so people who are comfortable using a QR code could just keep it on their phone.
Right. Right.
Does this, the question that's gonna be at the meeting, about 55 plus projects and the zoning changes, is that, does that impact? I mean, it seems like it should impact smart growth, but
Yeah,
That's a great question, Ronnie. I would say that in terms of immediate impact, I think it's gonna do two things. First, it's gonna kind of reacquaint the community and town voters with the just zoning generally, and then the concept of density and what is actually feasible, because the proposal that's coming before the town, as I understand it, correct me, Mark, because I haven't been at some recent planning board meetings, but they're tweaking the density and the amount of housing units that you can actually construct in a single project, in a single building. So it's going to have that first kind of priming effect for residents to start thinking about, how many housing units do we want in close proximity, especially for our senior populations and our senior housing. I think the next kind of consequence and impact that this upcoming vote could have on this project is to have residents start thinking about where is more dense housing concentration and development preferred in the town, right? Because you're adding density on the west side of the Route 9 corridor, closer to the river, and
and I'll just touch on that. What this article, if it passes, is doing is it's saying that the senior overlay district that we had 2 years ago, which is basically along Route 9, we're now calling that the central senior housing overlay district. And the new one that was voted in last fall, I think, which goes up North Maple.
North Maple, yep.
That one is now being called the rural senior. So the central, we are softening the restrictions on density and number of units because we haven't seen really anything but one project in, I don't know, 15 years that we've had it open. So we're going to try this. And we have it sounds like we're going to have a potential project coming from that over by the bridge. But that's just one project, and there's not a lot of other obvious sites. And so that's what we're looking at. Where can we do infill, or are there other areas other than, that section? Because that's really just from the garden center west, I think, toward the bridge.
I think so, yeah. Is that East Street at the garden center?
The garden center is really, I mean, I think it's basically where the bike path goes under Route 9.
Oh, right. It's a little bit past it, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Spruce.
what is that, East Hadley Road that goes off? By the, anyway, yeah, it's just past Spruce Hill or.
Yeah.
So when it says the changes will allow buildings with more than 4 residential units currently prohibited, there could be one dwelling per 4,350 square feet of land area. Does that mean a dwelling mean with 4 units, or is a dwelling just?
I think what it's going to enable is there's talk about maybe 40, 50 unit apartment complex being set back where edible arrangements and where Manny's was, that mall. That's what I think the Parmars are interested in, converting their strip mall there into senior housing.
Mhm.
And I think this would enable them to do that with the amount of land that they have. It would allow them to get, I can't remember, up to 40 or 50 units there.
Yeah,
And it still gives us the design review latitude to say, that's too big, that's ugly, you know, it has to be softened by being set back and landscaped and whatever. Because right now, most of our, you know, our typical zoning in town is one house, one lot.
mhm.
And then the senior, housing, allows a little more density, but now we were gonna crank it up a little more because we really have only seen one project. So.
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I just couldn't, the article said, you know, a dwelling with 4 residential units is currently prohibited. And there could be one dwelling per 4,350 square feet of land, which is much denser than the one building per 7,260 feet. So I didn't know if the dwelling meant a building with 4 residential units, or those are, I mean, whoever wrote it may not know either, Scott. But,
I don't know, do you want to answer that, Kyle?
I would need you, sorry, Ronnie, I need you to read that one to me one more time because I haven't looked at this recently.
You
So,
read-
this was an article in the paper.
Oh,
that
okay.
Considered zoning changes
um,
for 55 plus projects.
Yeah,
Says it would allow buildings with more than 4 residential units.
right. Yeah. So my understanding is the way that the senior housing or the village senior overlay is currently written is that it limits a building to essentially 4 dwelling units.
Okay.
And that's what the Parmar
Townhouses.
Sons, yeah, you could only do 4 townhouses, or you could only do, you know,
Foundation and structure and,
But that's the 4,350 square feet instead of the 72.
because
Right.
I think historically, we didn't want apartment buildings. And we're saying, well, we're not getting anything. That's not helping, so let's open this up a little bit, and so that's what we're, you know.
I do think it's nice to have a warrant article related to zoning coming up. I think especially one that's touching on some of the topics that we've already identified through this project. Because smart growth 40R zoning cannot place age restrictions on developments, right? And so it's good that the town is already considering, you know, amending what is already on the books to encourage some development, especially for a population that is, you know, seeking more housing options and a variety of options. And then we can, you know, address the broader population needs and talk about what housing options would be of interest for seniors and everyone else, right? Because you can't exclude, but you can't exclude seniors, but you can't exclude, you know, families and the like. So I think it will be helpful for the conversation. And I think especially letting residents think about, you know, where this zone is, because it's, you know, what is it, Spruce Hill Road and Route 9 to the west is the Village Senior, soon to be Central Senior overlay. And now we have a rural, which is Route 9 and North Maple up to Rocky Hill Road, that little block.
Over the 160.
Over to 116, thank you. So, you know, residents are now thinking, okay, so this is where senior housing is happening. Is there space along Route 9 for a mix of housing types? Is it a mix of commercial and housing types. And so I hope that it's, kind of, again, priming residents to start talking about these types of things. Any last thoughts? No?
On Ronnie's question or on your previous question or?
I have nothing else to present on to
Okay.
the agenda is essentially exhausted if we're reconvening next week to continue the finalizing
Right.
tasks for the May events.
Kyle, did you check in with the senior center about using the space?
I've reached out to Nikki and I have not heard back from her, so I'm gonna send
I
it
can try
out.
reaching out.
Can you? I'm gonna double check or make sure that I haven't missed anything, but I tried again today and didn't catch her, so
Okay. And so in terms of setup, what sort of setup will be needed and how long should I try to book the space for?
we're wanting it for at least the 2 hours, so I'd say, try to give us a 3 hour window for setup and
Like
breakdown.
half hour before and half hour after,
That's
maybe?
typically that's how I do it. The setup, I think currently, last time I was over there, they have, I think, 6 round tops of a certain size, like a larger size, and 6 of a smaller size, like a 4 count round table, and then like a 6 to 7 count. I also saw long tables, so I think I would be inclined to use I don't know, Aiden, it's your thought.
Yeah,
I'll defer to you. Do you
right.
prefer round or square tables?
It's hard to know. I think because we're still kind of devising the specifics of what these sort of activities might look like. But I would say in general, depends on the size of the round tables. If they can like facilitate discussion pretty easily across them, that's best. Otherwise, I would say, maybe narrower square tables.
Yeah.
We can work with either. I don't think it's like a make or break it sort of thing, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
The
Kayla, if you can just ask that, what is typically in there to be left in there, I think we can make do. And, if we have extra tables, we can, just leave those off to the side. The space is pretty large. We didn't get a full head count of what the capacity was, but
Yes.
it's
Did you get that? Because we should have a strategy for
for
if we're,
overflow.
yeah, if we're more popular than we anticipate.
Yes.
So we should find out how many that room is rated for. And then maybe I can talk to Nikki and say, if we're counting on, let's say 4 dozen people, let's say 48 people in that room, maybe we set up the 4 corners for, a dozen people in each corner. But if we end up with twice that many people, can we use other rooms or will the rest of the space be occupied? Like, could we have 2 or 3 in there and have another one down by the exercise room or another group in here? If, or do we just have to turn people away? And say, please come to our next one on Saturday.
Too popular.
There's
Yeah,
also, if it's nice weather, there's room outside.
I know I'm dreaming, but
Yeah.
it would be nice to get that much interest.
People away.
Yeah,
The round tables are very good. I mean, I've been in there enough times for a discussion and you can squeeze probably 8 people if you need to around. And
Okay.
sometimes we put 2 round tables.
It
Together.
works.
yeah.
Sounds good.
And in terms of next week's agenda, so it'll be finalizing the draft for the public events and then finalizing the FAQs as well.
Yes.
Is there
As
anything
as
else?
part of the outreach. So yeah, we'll just call that part of the outreach materials. So the flyer and the
Okay.
FAQs. Yeah. You already got it ready. Great.
So that's April 30th, and the next day is town meeting, right?
Yeah. Jane?
It's the mayor.
Great. All right. Well, I've got nothing else for today.
I don't think I have anything else. With a committee of 5, a quorum of 3, if anybody needs to work on anything before the next meeting, offline, not in a public meeting, it could be in a subgroup of 2. So if I wanted to work on my, like, for example, on my FAQ draft, I could bounce that off of Randy. Well, he's gone on vacation, so, but Ronnie, and that would be, that should be fine. So,
I know we don't have any public, but we didn't ask for public comment.
oh, right. Yeah, I think if we saw them since we're not live, I mean, the only way they could would be to be here or on Zoom. But yeah, you're right, that's a good point. We did kind of jump over that, but we'll blame that on the fact that we did not see any public present, so. And I don't think not that would allow them to comment, but I don't think we are being streamed live on
No,
the YouTube station. That's the bigger
I hope not.
events. Yeah. So. All right.
So next week we'll be ready to finalize those things. Thank you, Andrew. I've received your email. So Mark, I'll send you a gentle reminder end of day on Friday.
Good. And we'll plan to maybe see you next Wednesday, but possibly just if your wife doesn't make it all the way to the inducement date.
Yeah. So
Yep.
If anything exciting happens in the meantime, I will not be here, but I do look forward to seeing everybody next week. It's going to be fine. And everything's going to go as scheduled. No hiccups.
Hope so.
And
Hope
I just
so.
want to go back to and thank Kayla for those minutes. Kayla, have you seen the version that Bill's AI did of the planning board?
I did.
Bill's using AI, huh?
Was it scary?
Yeah, technology.
I haven't seen him, but I thought he said that it was almost too. I don't know if it's summarized anything or if it was more like dictation. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was a little it was more like a transcript, but
Yeah,
still,
yeah.
I mean, understood what was going on.
Wow.
Crazy times.
Yeah, I'll have to keep my sarcasm down now.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, if we have nothing else, next meeting is next Wednesday, the 30th. That's a impromptu. And then it would be 2 weeks after that to the next one, because I think we're doing the 2nd and 4th. So it's not like
Should we reach out to Randy and Kishore?
Yeah, well, Randy's on vacation. I did text with him. He said, I will not be part of your quorum tonight.
Yeah, I remember he said that he wasn't gonna be here.
Yeah. So with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn. Unless anyone has anything else to add.
Second,
So you will,
I would make a
you will
motion
move to adjourn?
move to adjourn.
And Ronnie, would you second?
Yes, I'm
All
second.
right, so bringing it to a roll call vote. Andrew?
Andrew Gannett, aye.
Ronnie Williams, aye.
Mark Dunn, aye. This meeting is adjourned.